The last method to consider is the fourth one, and this is Peirce's choice. It's the method of science. Peirce prefers this method because only this method, he thinks, can successfully fix belief in the long run. Why? Well, it's not based on subjective opinions, right, of dogmatists, of governments, of metaphysicians. It's based on the world. It's based on experience in the world. Peirce says, to satisfy our doubts, therefore, it's necessary that a method should be found by which our beliefs may be caused by nothing human, but by some external permanency, by something upon which our thinking has no effect. Some mystics imagine that they may have such a method in a private inspiration from on high, but that is only a form of the method of tenacity in which the conception of truth as something public is not yet developed. Our external permanency would not be external in our sense if it was restricted in its influence to one individual. It must be something which affects or might affect every man. And though these affections are necessarily as various as our individual conditions, yet the method must be such that the ultimate conclusion of every man shall be the same. Such is the method of science. Its fundamental hypothesis, restated in more familiar language, is this. I have to continue reading because this is incredibly important. He says, there are real things whose characters are entirely independent of our opinions about them. Those realities affect our senses according to regular laws, and though our sensations are as different as our relations to the objects, yet by taking advantage of these laws of perception, we can ascertain by reasoning how things really are, and any man, if he have sufficient experience and reason enough about it, will be led to the one true conclusion. The new conception here involved is that of reality. So in other words, what Peirce is saying here is that there's a real world with real things that affect us independently of what we wish. These things act in law-like ways that can be perceived, and we discover the way the world is by inquiring with other people. Right? So his assumption here is not a priori, right? It's a scientific approach that assumes hypothetically, okay, that there are real things which can correct our theories. Right? So this differs from the a priori method, which states that what things must be like then molds their opinions to the theory. Right? So this is a big difference. It is a hypothetical supposition that there's a real world that corrects our theories. Okay? And it's tested and it proves out over time that it works. Okay? Second thing about this method to know is that there is an irritation that we feel when we hear two contradictory propositions. So if you hear someone say in class, right, it's raining outside, and you hear someone say, it's not raining at all, it's completely clear day. There's a kind of feeling of repugnance at these two contradictory opinions, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you, I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you go and mess with children and you tell them two contradictory things, they get kind of annoyed. And so Peirce noticed this about us, that there's a kind of annoyance we have at contradiction. And he thinks that this is a phenomenon which illustrates that there must be some one way that the world is, which we assume that it is, right? That you cannot have two realities at once. And so that's why we allow ourselves the hypothesis that there's one world. Right? So there's an ingrained social impulse, an adaptation or a habit to feel this repugnance. Right? So it's very hard to doubt reality. It's almost as hard as doubting one's own feelings, although we do know people who doubt reality, and we do know people who doubt their own feelings. Right? So it's not beyond us to train ourselves. But if we listen to our sort of more natural response, we'll see that, we can listen and we can hear our feelings and the external world. The third thing he says in favor of this method is that the scientific method is very commonly used, right? It has a very good track record. It's been used for quite a while with a lot of experimental results and verifications. He says also that the scientific method is the cause of many successes, right? Many doubts have been resolved by the scientific method, and few people have living doubts, right? Real doubts about the success of the method. And I don't know if you went and watched, I posted a video recently, or saw a video recently of Hilary Putnam, and he said he was describing a talk he gave to some Nobel Prize scientists, and they have very few disagreements about philosophical ideas that he was presenting that most philosophers have. So there's this kind of way in which people who are scientists have a more realistic, less combative, or you might say hair angels dancing on the head of a pin approach to certain questions. And that's the kind of mindset that Peirce is trying to bring into philosophy here. The final and I think most important advantage that he mentions in favor of the scientific method is that it has the ability to self-correct. Right? The scientific method can lead to new knowledge, and then as a method, it can affirm itself or maybe even attack itself a little bit by whether it applies successfully. He says, but with the scientific method, the case is different. I may start with known and observed facts to proceed to the unknown, and yet the rules which I follow in doing so may not be such as investigation would approve. The test of whether I am truly following the method is not an immediate appeal to my feelings and purposes, but on the contrary, itself involves the application of the method. Hence it is that bad reasoning as well as good reasoning is possible, and this fact is the foundation of the practical side of logic. Okay? So if I make a blunder in the way I'm inquiring, the scientific method will point it out, because only that method requires that one looks to the results and then check the theory. If the scientific method leads to bad results, it throws itself into question in terms of its own methods, right? Other methods do not do this. So science is self-correcting. So this is sort of the end of this little lecture about Peirce's fixation of belief. And I hope it's been clarifying for you. And maybe there'll be lots to talk about afterwards. Thanks for watching.